Ladies, gentlemen, and gamers around the world, 2025 is shaping up to be an absolutely incredible year for us with the new titles dropping over the next few months. Whether they be fully new IPs or highly anticipated returns or sequels to existing series, there are a lot of high quality projects being released to the public before the end of 2025, and so today I wanted to sit back and just go over the 10 games that I am most excited for this year, slated for release before it ends. First, before we even enter the list properly, an honorable mention: Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. As someone who had a slight obsession with the Metal Gear lore and story without ever actually playing most of the games myself until a few years ago, Snake Eater was always a game that I have had absolutely massive respect and admiration for, but not one that I've actually played through myself. And while I had plans to do so a couple of summers back, this remake was announced before I got around to it, and so I decided to wait for it. And with the game slated to release now at the end of August this year, and all of the actual footage released for it looking like it is a real proper remake rather than just a low effort remaster, I'm actually quite excited for the opportunity to experience an absolutely legendary game in a completely fresh way. Moving to 10th place then, I've got Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. I'm a simple man with a love for comics and of course superheroes as a result too. And while I've got my reservations about Marvel games given over the last few years, there have been a couple of really big stinkers, but there have also been games like the heavily underrated Guardians of the Galaxy game and of course Marvel Rivals coming out recently too, so I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt until shown otherwise at least, especially because the game is the first project by a new studio, but headed by a former director from Naughty Dog. And so far all we've had is the one story trailer, but something about the attention to detail, the voice acting, and even just the concept of the flags of our father's storyline to begin with is really cool to be adapted into a game. And honestly, it's hard to say that I'm all in until we get a proper gameplay trailer, but I'm definitely quite excited for when that day comes. Up in 9th then, we have the first Berserker, Khazan. I'm a big action RPG guy, and Khazan ticks a lot of those boxes for me. The combat is super flashy, it's very well responsive, and while it probably won't be for everyone with its very over-the-top animations and ridiculous amounts of gore, I absolutely adore the mixed aesthetics of like Viking warrior in a very dark Eastern animated setting. The combat is fluid and fast-paced, and the boss fights have some real genuine challenge to them too, which I can confirm because we played an earlier technical test of the game here on the channel, and there is currently even a demo that you can download now and try for yourself too to see if it's in your style. The game is planned to release in a bit over a month from when this video comes out, and if you like the idea of challenging action combat games and enjoy the visual style you're seeing here, definitely check it out for yourself. Moving on up to 8th place then, I've got Borderlands 4, and this was a very hesitant, sort of hopeful position for the game. The first Borderlands game came out when I was 12 years old, which if you're aware of what Borderlands is, put me at the exact perfect range where every single joke in the game was very funny to me. And that combined with a really enjoyable creative story, world, and extremely satisfying gameplay made me absolutely fall in love with the series. Borderlands 2 was arguably even better than the first one, and there have been some descending issues with the game since then, just sort of on and off, and while I have started Borderlands 3 a number of times, I've never made it to the end personally because I just didn't have it feel the same to me. That said, if Borderlands 4 can manage to recapture the sort of same aura of the first game in the series, but while upgrading the gameplay itself enough around it, it definitely has a chance of reigniting that flame that made me fall in love with Borderlands to begin with, so I'm definitely keeping an eye on it as we approach its late September release. Then in 7th place, I've got Doom: The Dark Ages, releasing on May 13th of this year, so not too far away. The Doom games are a guilty pleasure, not even just for me personally, but pretty much for anyone who plays them. It's sort of like a hack and slash but with guns, it's a power fantasy ripping through demons, badass soundtrack following you around as you just assert your dominance over an entire goddamn universe. And the Dark Ages specifically brings us to a whole new sort of aesthetic realm for the Doom games, with a very Norse, almost Viking-like theme to a lot of the game this time around. And as someone who obsessed over Norse mythology for about a year when I was younger, I absolutely adore this unique and different take on a series that is built from the ground up around fun, and making sure that the player has as much fun as possible, because that's what Doom is all about, and quite often they achieve this to quite a high rate of success as well. Up in 6th place then is Elden Ring Nightrain. I recently got to play the network test for this game, and while the full release isn't happening until later this year, it gave me a lot of context for what to expect, and I got to experience the gameplay loop itself. For those out of the know, this is essentially the raw gameplay style of Elden Ring, with the combat, weapons, bosses, and enemies all from that game, with some bonuses of course that are from other Souls games, but transformed into a roguelike game, essentially. You start a run of the game with 1 or 3 players, with multiplayer definitely being the intended version. You land on a part of the set map, and then you run around collecting runes and equipment to make yourself stronger. As you do so, a circle closes in around you, sort of like a battle royale game, so you have limited time, and you are damaged if you wander out of the circle as it's closing down. When the circle hits its smallest point, a big major boss will spawn, and you repeat that cycle a second time, and you get to the main boss of your run. Each session is 45 minutes or so at maximum, with 3 main bosses, 1 for each of the 2 nights, and then the 3rd major one at the end. And while in the network test people are concerned about replayability of a roguelike game with a stagnant map, to our knowledge, the maps will be different for each end boss, which you can choose when you start your run. And while we only had 1 of them on the test, which is why it was 1 map, there are planned to be like 8 different options at full release later this year, so there should be a lot more variety when that happens. Next up in 5th place is Mafia: The Old Country. This game is the newest addition to another series I've been a fan of for a very long time, with my first experience being Mafia 2 back when I was 13 years old. The game had such a rich, immersive game world, such a fully absorbing story, and honestly around this age, I found my love of just causing massive amounts of chaos in open world games. And the open world of this game both let you cause absolute chaos, but also sort of turned it on its head and let you turn on a setting that forced you to stay under the speed limit while driving so that you could obey the road rules properly. Mafia 3 came out a few years later, and I definitely did enjoy it, though I found quickly that I preferred the entries in the series set a bit further back in time, and that's where this newest entry comes in. Mafia: The Old Country, set to release at some point this year, takes the game out of the United States entirely, where it's been for a while, and sets the story in 1900s Sicily. And that sounds like it'll just be a ton of fun from everything I've seen so far, and with my own personal experiences with gaming in the past too. On the 4th place entry then, we have Ghost of Yotei. This is a standalone sequel from Sucker Punch Games to Ghost of Tsushima, an absolutely smash hit from 2020 that I myself put over 100 hours in before they even added the whole legend mode as well. I was considering doing a second playthrough too, and if we're talking about immersive open world games, few worlds have ever sucked me in quite as much as the original game here. Just the absolute beauty of every patch of land. The stylishness was out of this world through the whole game, and even ignoring that I enjoyed the story and gameplay as well. Just the open world immersion level is enough to get me quite excited about the idea of a sequel. And so Ghost of Yotei is right up my alley, and the developers have also explicitly stated that players will have actually more direct choice over the actions of protagonists within the story, which is definitely something that can be quite a fun addition to the original game's formula and concept. In 3rd place then, Subnautica 2. This game is expected to be a 2025 release with very little information past that, but the original Subnautica is one of the greatest exploration-focused games that has ever been made. If you have never looked into it before, you essentially end up stranded on an alien planet in a vast ocean expanse with very little land within it. You have to work to survive here and find a way to build your way off of the planet, but with an alien ocean that goes over a kilometer deep in some areas, there is quite a lot to discover along the way that might make you just sort of piss yourself, depending on your disposition towards deep sea creatures. This isn't the first technical sequel to Subnautica there was below zero, but it is the first numbered sequel, and the first entry in 4 years at this stage. If the teaser trailer graphics are to be believed, then the game is going to look absolutely incredible, which means that everything underwater will be 10 times more terrifying. But there's also going to be co-op this time around in theory, which is going to be an absolute game changer as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to have an incredibly fun time playing through the game, while Josh is beside me having one consistent unending anxiety attack for the entire playthrough. Moving up to 2nd place then, a game that has been first for most people for multiple years, but is second for me because it's 2025, is Grand Theft Auto 6. I have been clear about the era that I grew up in and my love of open worlds, and especially causing chaos within them. Well, the Grand Theft Auto series has always been the real sort of king of that concept, and with GTA 5, Rockstar put a stranglehold on the entire gaming industry by creating one of the most universally successful video games of all time, and with good reason, as the game itself was incredibly well made, had endless replayability, and when multiplayer was added in, it became an absolute smash hit. That said, with a success like that, they of course want to build on it. They want the next entry to be bigger, better, more impressive. Grand Theft Auto 5 released in 2013. That is now 12 years ago, and that feels crazy to say that it is a 12-year-old game, but that means there are now 12 years separating Grand Theft Auto 5 and the theoretical release of Grand Theft Auto 6. There is an absolute ton of hype for them to live up to now when this game comes out, and the developers are definitely capable of meeting that hype. So like pretty much everyone else on the internet, I am eternally hyped for the shenanigans this game will allow me to undertake with my friends, and of course the story that will hook me me in the single player too. Then finally, in my number 1 slot, if you know me or even this channel at all, you probably knew it was going to be Monster Hunter Wilds. Technically, this game will be out in a few days from when this video goes up, but it isn't out yet, so it has to be both on the list and in this slot. I've been staying as blind and spoiler-free as physically possible about this game. I know extremely little, and I am more hyped for it than I have ever been for a game before it's released, because I trust the developers. They have the biggest budget that they've ever been given, and the sheer scope of the game, even in the reveal trailer, makes it look like it's going to be something extremely special. Monster Hunter, a few years ago as a series, was very, very niche, but World brought it more into the public eye. Now we have the start of a whole new generation of Monster Hunter, with the series more popular than it has ever been in the past, simultaneous release on multiple platforms, and what I expect to be the most ambitious title and the most ambitious entry to my favorite series in video gaming. That just about does it for today. Then everyone, my list of the top 10 games I am most excited to see come around this year. The places where I've sort of split up and designated my hype so I don't reach like the excitement overflow. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and let me know any games that you are excited for personally that I might not have mentioned here in the comments down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.